Our next speaker, Mr. Rahul Bhalla, is the Chief Executive Officer at Zenetics, a leading provider of IoT-based energy solutions for IoT-based energy management solutions for commercial buildings. Zenetics is challenging the traditional automation and energy management solutions and providing IoT-powered energy asset management to the hospitality sector. Prior to starting Zenetics, he spent 11 plus years in the intellectual property outsourcing space, where he was one of the pioneers and built multiple businesses and service lines. Rahul is an alumnus of IIT Delhi, an avid reader and loves to travel. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Rahul Bhalla.
Good evening, everyone. I'm one of the co-founders and CEO at Zenetics. So what we're going to talk about today is energy. It's your second biggest spend. Everybody wants to reduce energy consumption. Nobody knows how to do it. So let's talk about it, because typically what you would do as a business leader is go to your directors of engineering and say, look, we want to reduce our energy consumption. They talk back to you in a language that you don't understand. It's hard to decode, and therefore you just put the topic under the covers. So it's a problem that needs to be solved, and let's see how IoT simplifies it. This is not a sales pitch. I will not use any engineering jargon. We'll just simply, I'm going to put a list of questions on every slide, which I anticipate will be the questions on your mind. And I'm going to just answer those questions as we go along. So let's first start with, what are the challenges that, the business leaders face? I think the first big challenge is that energy as a subject is a black box. As I said, it's your second biggest spend, but it comes as a black box. The engineering language is hard to decode. And there is no really real-time correlations with the business output, which in hospitality could be number of room nights sold or things like that. But there is no correlation which really sets the right benchmarks. And also the fact that, high energy consumption and the increasing maintenance costs has really become a norm. It's a given that, energy consumption is going to go up. So how, IoT and AI comes into play and simplifies the problem, right? So IoT is nothing. It's Internet of Things. What it's really going to do is connect all your assets, energy assets, air conditioning systems, lighting systems, over the internet. And what's happening in the basement of a hotel room, it's going to bring that out, visibility out, right onto your laptop. That's how, IoT works. It uses sensors, actuators to get a lot of data. And what it does is, especially when you have multiple properties, you essentially create centralized visibility. You run intelligent controls. And also, then the whole role of ML and AI comes in. When you have a lot of data, how do you use that data to do predictive maintenance, right? So these are really the three benefit things that you do with IoT. And in terms of benefits, how it translates into is about 10 to 20% energy savings. You can derive through intelligent controls and predictive maintenance. You will see an improvement in your compliance. And compliance is, guest comfort compliance, for which you're running the air conditioning. It's food safety compliance, because there's a lot of refrigeration in hospitality. And finally, there is a reduction in breakdowns, because now you're doing predictive maintenance. IoT is real. Here are some early adopters, who have been taking the plunge. So, Sammy is a great example. 26 hotel properties, all on single IoT platform for us. We've done, work for Shanti Hospitality. We just started working for IHCL and Chalet as well. Residency, Club Mahindra. So these are some customers. We've already done deployments or are in the process of doing deployments. So it's real, right? So the next question is that, the elephant in the room is always BMS, right? So when you have a BMS, why do you need IoT, right? That's a question on everybody's mind. One, I think the BMS systems, traditional systems have been on-premise systems, which means that, they do not provide any visibility outside of a BMS room. And that's where IoT steps in, because, they provide connected systems. They provide you visibility across all your sites. That's the benefit. Second, you can start building correlations with business metrics, right? Because you can merge data from two systems. You can get the engineering data from IoT. You can get your sales data. You can say that, look, what are my room nights sold in terms of output? and you can start correlating what is my energy consumption per room night sold, what is my energy consumption per available room, and that sort of benchmarks can start developing, which essentially helps you have better boardroom conversations as opposed to still keeping energy as a black box. In terms of cost, it's 40 to 60% cost effective because it's a hardware light technology, it's software rich, so all the traditional systems do a lot of software processing on the embedded side. And IoT being hardware light makes it easy. It's very easy to deploy in brownfield environments. Wireless technology, battery powered, very, very easy. You don't need to run long cables. Those are the benefits. And finally, there is a condition monitoring happening, which is that you're using data to do predictive maintenance. You are not sending, or you are not just doing a lot of preventive. Preventive is important, but I think condition-based monitoring is the future. That's where everybody is getting into. So net, I think with IoT, you can do a lot more than a BMS at literally half of the cost. That's been our experience. I think the next question that would typically come in is that what do you do when you have multiple properties, right? And this is a state of the art for everybody, that there are properties which have a BMS, some properties which don't have a BMS. So how do you solve that problem, right? Do you need to switch everything to IoT? So I think that's the question I'm trying to answer. So really 3 different types of environments. One is that one which has a full BMS implementation. I think IoT can just simply connect to those BMS systems and get the data. It doesn't matter which brand of BMS do you have. The second is that it could be a partial implementation, in which case you actually leverage what you have, and in the other cases you deploy additional IoT sensors and actuators where the gaps exist. And finally, there could be sites where you have no BMS, in which case you deploy IoT-based technology. And the idea is that because IoT allows you to create a platform, you essentially get all your single properties in a single platform. And as you open up new properties, which could be greenfield development, in that case, you can continue with IoT, or you can actually take a BMS from a traditional provider, but you can still get all the properties on a single platform. You create visibility, you create business metrics, correlations, and everything is on a single place. This is how things work in the IoT world. You collect the data from the systems, the data is pushed onto the cloud where algorithms run. And as an output, you're really doing 2 things. One, you are controlling something. It could be an intelligent control, or you are doing an anomaly detection. You're using data to identify the performance of every asset and flagging where something is going wrong. And the way to sort of drive action on that anomaly detection is to sort of create a ticket, right? So, in classical world, when you're managing buildings as well, ticketing is the best way, right? But it needs to be simplified enough that one, you are, delivering value through controls, and in second case, you're delivering value through anomaly detection and ticketing workflow, which will allow you eventually to have better predictive maintenance, reduction in breakdowns, as well as improved compliances. Beyond hospitality, we have done a lot of work. We have 2,500 plus deployments across the country in 200 cities. We have about 50,000 connected assets. So we've done a lot of work in F&B. All the major quick service restaurants are our customers, supermarkets, retail, all the major brands and supermarkets are customers. And that's where we developed the expertise over 8+ years. And now we sort of done a lot of work in hospitality as well. So I'm going to just show you some examples, where you would see that, how simplified it could be, right? So this chart really is showing you energy consumption, per available room, per occupied room night, per square feet of space. So you can develop different benchmarks, and you can cluster hotels. It could be an upscale category, could be different from a mid-scale category, right? So all those things are possible, and that slicing and dicing can easily be done because unlike the traditional BMS systems where you can't do a lot of data processing, IoT allows you to do that because cloud has a lot of compute, which allows you to do that. This is another example where you see all your hotels, lobby temperatures on a single heat map. That tells you that, you're not undercooling, you're not overcooling, right? And that's the language you really want to understand, right? As I said, the business leaders understand the language of, rupees per room night sold. They want to understand, are you maintaining the right temperature? So if you can actually just in a single click know what's happening at all of your properties without getting into jargon, that's where you can drive actions, right? And this is example of, things going wrong, and tickets are being created for the engineering teams to really solve. So it's very, very simplified. Nobody needs to analyze a lot of data. The data is being analyzed at the back end through algorithms, and very, very simplified way put onto actions. And the ticketing allows you to have a workflow. You can create a ticket. You can close a ticket after you have addressed the problem. So that's another example. This graph is not, it's not as scary as it looks, but it's a very simplified representation of an example where you can use machine learning to do predictive maintenance. So I've shown 2 refrigeration compressors because refrigeration is a big load in hospitality. What you see in a black line is a good behavior of a compressor, which is switching on and switching off based on a set temperature, and the yellow line is representing a bad compressor where you are actually seeing that the temperature may still be maintained, but the compressor is always on, which basically means that you are consuming twice the energy than you should be, right? And this data is, this is nobody's fault. The chief engineer doesn't know it, the OEM doesn't know it because nobody is measuring it. So a simple measurement of compressor behavior can just simply flag a problem. And as I said, nobody needs to, we do not expect that people just need to understand this. This is all done work automatically through the platform. And what you get as a ticket, where it's an action that the compressor of this particular refrigeration unit is not behaving right, and you got to service it, right? So that's another example of AI. This is again our learning that what's really recommended approach for getting started with IoT. Right? So the first important thing is open mind, right? The moment you sort of say that, look, let's take this problem to the chief engineer, it's not going to happen because I think all of them have seen the BMS world. That's the ecosystem that's been developed. That's the language that they understand. So it needs to be driven at the leadership level, where the leadership is say that this is a new technology. That's the future. Let's try it out. Right? That's where it needs to start. You need to have an open mind for the new technology. Align your engineering team and say, look, let's try it out. But more importantly, define metrics, the metrics that are going to deliver value. Metrics in terms of what do you want to see? 1 or 2 examples that I mentioned were, you want to see energy consumption per room night sold. I want to see the temperature of all my lobby areas on a single screen. So you define what you feel is important. Because that defines the scope for the project. Then pick one property of your portfolio, do it, taste the success, and then finally replicate it. Right? That's what I think. It's not a rocket science. It's just you got to start somewhere, and we believe that that's probably the right way of doing things. And finally, I think why Zenetics? I haven't talked much about Zenetics. As I told you, it's not a sales pitch. But at the final go, why do you think we could be the right partners for you? Because one, we have developed a full stack technology. It's a complete solution, managed solution that we do it for you after we develop, spent about 8+ years into R&D. I started the company with 2 of my batchmates from IIT Delhi. Very, very good technology talent that we got in-house. As a company, we're backed by Hero Group. We are financially stable. And then obviously, final thing is that we have extensive experience with 2,500+ deployments. So that's where I will stop. Thank you so much. I hope it helps you understand and decode IoT a little bit. I'm around. If you have any questions, feel free to come in. Thank you.